Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It's a great day to be great. It's a great day to break down some Thursday night football takeaways and all of the fantasy relevant injuries you need to know ahead of week 6. And sadly, yes, there are a ton of them. And joining me as always in this edition of the Fantasy Life Show, the one, the only Dwain, the Rock McFarland. Dwain, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Ian. I am in a situation right now where my wife brought in a new family member. She found a cat at Sonic yesterday. My wife loves all animals. We've taken in so many strays before. I'm team, we don't need any more animals. But now my daughter has already named the cat. So you know where I'm sitting. Like, yeah, it's Jover. I've already lost. I've lost this thing. I will say the cat is quite an athlete. I went in and hung out in the bathroom and watched it. It's probably only 4 or 5 weeks old. It's really young. But man, it can jump. It can pounce. It can catch things I throw to it already. So it knows its way to my heart.
What's our animal count at in the McFarland household?
Well, we've got 3 dogs right now, Ian. We've got 1 cat, and then we have 3 guinea pigs, and it looks like it's about to be 2 cats. I did ask my wife, what if this cat thinks that guinea pigs are like fun to hunt rather than our other old cat who's just kind of like, that thing's too big? That could be a problem. So we might have to figure that out.
And the cat's name?
Liza right now, and that's for my daughter Zoe because she loves Alexander Hamilton. She loves Hamilton the play. And so, yeah, if you guys have seen the Hamilton play, they're the 3 sisters, Liza being the love interest for Hamilton.
So again, guys, like I said at the top of the show, Dwayne's Zoo Thursday night football takeaways and all of the fantasy football injuries you guys need to know about. So that is fantastic, Dwayne. And just so everyone's clear, I am firmly on Zoe and Mrs. McFarland's side on this. Get used to that kitty cat, Dwayne. All right, guys, let's go ahead and break down what was another exciting Thursday night football affair. Getting some points here scored, more by the 49ers. So they took down their NFC West rivals, the Seattle Seahawks, 36-24. Did not blow another, just irresponsible double-digit lead late. So kudos to Kyle Shanahan and company for doing that and covering as 4-point favorites. Brock Purdy, just another efficient, solid game. Dwayne, 255 yards, not 1, not 2, 3 touchdowns through the air and chipped in 19 rushing yards as well. 1 long touchdown to Deebo Samuel. He had over 100 receiving yards. Almost like, remember that time all the way back on Wednesday when I was worried about Deebo Samuel? Dwayne, just goes to show you that, yeah, Deebo Samuel still very much good at football, as is George Kittle. 2 receiving touchdowns, now has an NFL high 5 on the season. Ended up being the odd man out game for Brandon Ayuk, just 2 catches for 37 yards. But the major storyline here, Dwayne, was an injury to Jordan Mason. Got banged up with the shoulder issue in the first half, was running really well before it, came back out in the second half, had 1 touch, didn't even get hit, man, ran out of bounds. Still, the pain was too much, and he missed the rest of the game. So with Jordan Mason potentially sidelined now, Dwayne, how do we see things split up between Isaac Guerrero and former Packer Patrick Taylor Jr.?
And so we don't know for sure what it will look like going forward. But the one thing that I think we can feel pretty good about is that it's not going to be what we were getting with Jordan Mason, which means just feeding one player. So if we look at the game, if we just look at the drives last night after Jordan Mason left. Now I left the 1 drive at the beginning of the second half, Ian, where he had the 1 carry and it didn't even get hit, and apparently that was already still hurting too much and he had to come out of the game. So it's obvious like they tried to do some pain management stuff at halftime and it wasn't working out. But if we look at all of those drives after Jordan Mason originally left the game, we had 38% of the snaps go to Isaac Guerrero, who did lead the team in rushing attempts with 6, but we had 45% of the snaps go to Patrick Taylor. He took more of the pass down work away. He had 5 rushing attempts. So I think it's going to be pretty evenly split between these 2 guys, or at least it's going to be some form of a rotation. We could see one or the other kind of emerge as more of the lead option, but I don't think we're going to get the situation like what we had with Jordan Mason, Ian, where we have one guy getting like 80% of this work and then a sprinkle in of Deebo Samuel for like another 10%. And last night, it's interesting to note, they didn't actually increase Deebo's touch count. It may have felt like it, but like once Jordan Mason left the game, he had 7% of the team's rushing attempts. So it's not like they suddenly just gave Deebo like 20%. Now, he did get more snaps in the backfield. You guys definitely probably noticed that on like the second or third to last drive of the game, or it might have been fourth. There was a decent run in there where like Debo felt like he was in the backfield almost every play, but they weren't necessarily handing it off. So I do think Samuel might get a touch more work until we see CMC back if this is a long-term injury for Jordan Mason. But the big takeaway here is this is going to be more of a split backfield. If I had to put a chip on a player, Ian, I do think it's Isaac Guerrero. He clearly does not have the same feel for this rushing game as when you watch Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason he's mastered it, right? He knows how to hit those cutback lanes. He has the patience. When you look at Guerrero, it's more of he still has the speed to hit it big when he needs to. There was a great block, a block by, I can't remember if it was a 49er center or guard, but basically just pinned the defender to the inside, and then Guerrero did find that hole and made that really long run. You saw his speed. So I think he's still the guy that you're going to target, but it's not a situation like what we had with Jordan Mason where you would be going all in with Fab. Plus, we're that much closer to a potential return from CMC.
You mentioned the big Guerrero run. Really did ice the game with under 2 minutes left. 76 yards down inside the 5-yard line. Slid to a stop. Didn't even want the touchdown. Ended up giving it to Kyle Juszczyk. So, again, don't think too many out there were starting Isaac Guerrero. I actually sadly had to in one dynasty league. So, would have been a lot cooler if you want a few more feet, man. But certainly a smart play by the rookie and looked good out there. So, we'll note that when we did get Deebo Samuel out there late, you saw that play where he got banged up and his arm was dangling. He confirmed in the postgame that he just hit his funny bone, Dwain, then got back out there after one play. So how relatable from Mr. Samuel. You mentioned the Christian McCaffrey return. We did get word from Ian Rappaport yesterday saying that CMC is targeting a potential return in early November. So looking at the 49ers schedule, big game next week against the Chiefs. Super Bowl rematch, going to be a fun time there. And then after that, let's see, they have the Raiders, Buccaneers, Broncos, Bills. So that's the Chiefs schedule. With the 49ers, all right, they had the Chiefs, then the Cowboys in week 8, bye in week 9. It kind of makes sense then, Dwayne, if we do see a CMC return potentially in week 10 here to save our fantasy rosters down the stretch. Over with the Seahawks, another pass-happy attack. Geno Smith, 52 attempts on the night, ended up getting to 312 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. So Seahawks now, Dwayne, plus 8% drop back rate over expected. Gotta love this pass-happy Ryan Grubbs-led passing attack.
Yeah, it's the most pass-happy offense in the NFL, and really the big development here, and we talked about it earlier in the week, but it was just another confirmation point, Ian, is the fact that Kenneth Walker's just not leaving the field on pass downs. Occasionally, he'll give up a little bit of that to Zach Charbonnet. You saw it on the first drive. Walker comes out, gets the first few snaps. Charbonnet came in on the third snap to take a third and long play, but he still had a 57% route participation last night, 68% snap share. Handled 70% of the rushing attempts, a 9.4 utilization score in week 6 for Kenneth Walker. He's now at a 9.1 for the season, guys. So he is very locked into mid-range.
Is that the highest?
Running back 1. That's 9.1 won't be the highest on the season. We'll have to see what it looks like at the end of this week. Some of the other players could go down, but that's a very good score. So, Walker's locked into, at a minimum, like running back 4. Could be as high as running back 1. You have to feel really good about it. On the last 3 drives of the game, and this is how important it is to have this 2-minute offense roll, which he has. The last 3 drives of the game, the guy had 5 catches for 28 yards. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, guys, but that's 8 points in PPR. He went from being a guy that had given you, hey, you got the touchdown. You're like, whoo, glad I got the touchdown. He then turned into a 20-point player on the night because of that role in the 2-minute offense. And that role is even more important in Seattle because of how much they're throwing the ball and how much up-tempo they run. They go to the 2-minute offense not just at the end of the half. They just occasionally, they'll just decide, this is a drive, we're going to do it. We're just going to go full blazing speed the whole way down the field. So, yeah, it's just a situation in Seattle where the high tempo, the high commitment to passing the ball all the time is leading to massive volume for these guys. I mean, and one other great example, Ian, is like, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I'm sorry, he's not a first-round NFL pick. I think we know this at this point. But the guy, even with just a 20% target share, which is like a wide receiver 3 in the NFL, he has 8 targets a game because they're throwing the ball so much. JSN, we would like to see you do a little freaking more with these targets, dude. Come on. But still, you have a wide receiver 3 in fantasy land and potentially a wide receiver 2 just because of all the targets.
I don't love that JSN's defining play this year was last week when Geno had that long scramble and, JSN was acting like he was still running deep and getting the ball, pulling away defenders. Cool, high IQ play, high IQ play, but yeah, not exactly getting fantasy points for it. So would be nice if he stepped it up. Would be nice if DK Metcalf dealt with a little bit less sheesh last night. I think he's going to be on the cover of that article next week. My God, guys, team high, 11 targets, just 3 catches for 48 yards because he had a 52-yard touchdown nullified on an illegal shift, but one of those penalties where it really didn't even impact the play. Still can't do it though. Also had a couple drops in the first half, had a deep ball that was broken up where if it would have been a little bit more accurate, could have been a touchdown. And then right before halftime, literally guys inches away from getting that second foot down on what would have been a 2-yard touchdown. So again, it really sucks for DK.
DK could have scored 30 last night, man.
It really could have, man.
Yeah.
So disappointing. But, when you got Tyler Lockett out there, 65 yards and a touchdown, almost had a second one himself, still putting up some numbers for that Seahawks passing game. So I think that about does it for, again, our Thursday night recap. Hope you guys enjoyed another high-scoring affair. And now, guys, time to get into all the injuries ahead of Week 6. Right after this word to our friends over at Mike's Hard Lemonade. Fantasy football season is here, and while that may be cause for celebration, there will also be some hard days ahead. But Mike's Hard Lemonade wants to remind you that hard days deserve a hard lemonade. So after a hard day spent scouring the waiver wire or concocting the perfect trade or tinkering endlessly with your starting lineup, remember, it is time to quench your hard-earned thirst with a Mike's Hard Lemonade. Dwain, you might have noticed there's a few injuries going on in the NFL, and that honestly includes every single position. So we're going QB, RB, wide receiver, and tight end. Talk about, maybe not so much of a great day to be great. Tagline doesn't go as hard when we're talking about human beings being injured. Let's kick things off with a change at quarterback in New Orleans. Derek Carr with the oblique is out. Spencer Rattler is in ahead of this matchup against the Buccaneers. So I would like to be optimistic, Dwain, but let's face it, rookie making his first start, an offense that is a little bit banged up with Rashid Shaheed. We'll get to him later. How far down the ranks have you dropped guys like Chris Olave and Shaheed?
I've got Olave right now down to 58, overall, in our flex rankings. So you've got him right now at 64, so we're close. Friedman's a little higher, but he probably hasn't updated for the latest news on for sure having Derek Carr out. Charch is at 71, so we're all pretty close. Waz is a little higher than Charch, but right around me. So I think we're all seeing this as a downgrade to wide receiver 3 territory. Chris Olave, he's still going to get his targets, Ian. So I think we know that the way that he gets used in the passing game, we feel pretty safe about them. It's just what are those targets going to be worth? And it's still a run-heavy offense. So even when you get the target share, maybe you have a 30% target share in this game, it might only be 6 targets. And if only half of them are on target because we've got a backup quarterback in there, that could be a really bad day in fantasy land. So there's major potential for a dud here with Chris Olave. So I don't think that he is a must start this week. I think he's more of a wide receiver 3. If you're playing in a smaller league and if you're having a doubt about Chris Olave, he probably shouldn't be in your fantasy lineup. That probably means that you've got a better option than him. Now, if you're playing in a larger league, you're going to play him this weekend.
And for the record, both Dwain and myself have Rashid Shaheed straight up ranked higher than Chris Olave. What a time to be alive. We actually went there, Dwain. Other big quarterback news of the week. Colts QB Anthony Richardson dealing with that also oblique injury. Did practice in full on Thursday and is seemingly in line to start this Sunday against the Titans. So, Dwain, L'Jarius Sneed and that Titans secondary haven't exactly been a pushover this season. That said, we've always drafted and started Richardson because of that sweet, sweet rushing upside. Hopefully it's still there while he probably is still playing through at least a little bit of pain.
Yeah, and I've got him lower right now because I'm just really waiting on I was waiting on the final word, and the matchup is just it's not great, to your point. So I don't think there's a lot of passing upside here. To your point, we are taking this man because of his rushing upside, but the thing I've kind of been thinking about, Ian, is okay, at this point, what's really different between Anthony Richardson and Justin Fields? And I'm not ranking Justin Fields in my top 6 every week. We like him. We've told people to pick him up. We've talked about his upside scenario. You called it the week that he went off for 30 fantasy points. So people that listen to you, that was a great week to have Justin Fields, in your lineup. But man, I don't know. This is a situation where I'm just trying to decide how far am I going to push him up, Ian? Right now, Anthony Richardson, He's way down our ranks. Like you don't have him in there yet, so I don't know what's up with that. You're just being lazy, but I've got him.
I didn't know he was going to play this week. I have Flacco in there. Let's go through some quarterbacks, all right? Because I have Justin Fields.
I'm doing
QB12.
it. I'm looking at it. Yeah,
you have him QB 13.
Yeah, I'm looking at him.
All right. We trust Fields a little more right now. He's healthier. Okay, so Richardson versus Baker. I think I got Baker.
Yes, I got Jared Goff over him too.
Yeah,
I think the question is Caleb Williams. Do you go Caleb Williams against the Jaguars, who have been absolutely terrible guys? And Caleb Williams in the last 3 weeks has taken steps forward. Because the one thing with Richardson is the risk of re-injury. Because you know he's going to run more, and we want him to run more. That's how we're going to score the fantasy points. So I hate to say it, but I think this is a week where it's tough for me to get Richardson above like 16. I've got him at 18 right now.
I had Flacco as my QB 17. I'm looking at probably just crossing out his name and getting Richardson in there, Dwayne. I do think I would start him ahead of Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Andy Dalton, etc. Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson.
So right now I have Daniel Jones one spot ahead, but full practice yesterday for Richardson. Yeah. I'm going to move him above Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is our sicko play of the week, but I am going to move. We can't have Daniel Jones above Richardson. Still, to your point, he could throw for 100 yards and still go off for 30 fantasy points. Like Daniel Jones, it's really tough to see that kind of ceiling. So I'm going to put him above Daniel Jones. My challenge is all the other guys we have above him. I can see better ceiling case scenarios. Daniel Jones is more of a floor play in my mind. So that's the challenge with Richardson. Yeah, probably like QB 17, man. I think you could make an argument for him all the way to QB 13. There's a blob of quarterbacks right there. But I don't feel comfortable because of the risk of re-injury. I don't want to start him over Jared Goff with the Lions playing against the Cowboys. I mean, Goff, yeah, we know the run game's going to go crazy, but Goff could throw 3 or 4 touchdowns in that game.
It's just one of these things where, we obviously had Geno ranked ahead of him last night, which I think honestly was a good call. And Caleb with the Jaguars, even Baker against the Saints with Rattler under center, Cousins against the Panthers. Like the guys that we would normally be putting Richardson above do have the sort of matchup where, again, in a tougher tiebreaker with him banged up, probably fine going with the other guy there. So Anthony Richardson, be a lot cooler if you start, ripping off some of those top 5 finishes. We know you are capable of. At least, again, that health is moving in the right direction. So those were the 2 big injury news of the week with the quarterback position. I will say Will Levis good to go with the shoulder. Russell Wilson good to go as Justin Fields backup with that calf injury. The only other kind of big note, Dwayne, was what's going on with the Jets. Aaron Rodgers is expected to play with that ankle injury, but he'll have a new play caller. Nathaniel Hackett out, Todd Downing in. Any thoughts here, Dwayne?
I don't see anything look, I'm happy because Nathaniel Hackett, I don't think it can necessarily be worse. But I don't know that Todd Downing is going to go in and do a lot of the things that I'm looking for. A lot of these things you install into your offense throughout the offseason, Ian. So you're kind of limited whenever you take over an offense in the middle of the year as to what you can change. Maybe once they get to their bye week, they can implement a few more wrinkles, do some more motion, maybe get a little bit more play action going, doing some trick look plays, different things to just hold the defense off a little bit more, become a little bit more unpredictable. But I think what you'll most likely see is changing in the way you sequence plays, the way you're trying to set things up for later in the game, to hit the big play that you need. I think Todd Downing might be able to do a better job than Nathaniel Hackett in that area, but it's still it's TBD. We don't know for sure. So I don't see huge changes. I think the number one thing is they're going to try to get the run game going. They're going to really try to get that fixed because that's been a problem. But man, that's more of an offensive line health thing. I don't think that that's necessarily I don't know that has anything to do with Nathaniel Hackett. Right. So I think there's other things that the Jets have to solve to really get their offense rolling.
I'm sure that's exactly what our lovely CEO, Elliot, and noted diehard Jets fan wants to hear. So can't get much worse, gangrene. I don't think so. Probably can, actually. We'll see what happens Monday night against the Bills. Plenty more RB injuries to talk about, guys. But first, a quick word to our friends over at Knockaround. Hey everyone, head to knockaround.com and pick up your new go-to pair of polarized shades for less than $50. With over 25 frame styles and dozens of colors, you are guaranteed to find sunglasses that look good and protect your eyes with UV 400 protection, and that is of the full variety. And be sure to check out Knockaround's officially licensed NFL collection. Some of those shades, guys, are sweet. Saw the Cardinals ones this morning especially. Very, very, very cool. And be sure, again, so you can do that and rep your team all week long and hopefully all the way through the playoffs. Visit knockaround.com and use promo code LIFE for free shipping on your order. Again, that's knockaround.com. All right, Dwayne, we got some, good and bad news at the running back position. We'll start off with some good. Texans RB Joe Mixon started off the week with a DNP, but he did get a limited session on Thursday. That is the first time he's done that on Thursday. He did have a random, limited Friday session since he had this hamstring injury all the way back, not hamstring, ankle injury all the way back in week 2. Meanwhile, Damian Pierce with the hamstring injury did have the full practice on Thursday and should be good to go. So hopefully my voice doesn't crack again, Dwayne, but hopefully we actually do get Joe Mixon out there back in the RB1 role that I know a bunch of us drafted him for. Not necessarily a cake matchup against the Patriots, but if we learned anything in that week 1 spot where we had 30 plus freaking carries out here, it's that when Joe Mixon is active, he should have something close to an every down workhorse role.
Yeah, and so, I think the big thing here is if we can get full practice, I would love to see him off the injury report, right? Not questionable going into the game. That would give me a lot more confidence. We'll see if that happens. If that doesn't happen, but he plays, obviously, to your point, Ian, you're starting him in most cases, but I'm probably looking at him more as a mid-range to low-end running back 2 in that scenario. But if he's completely off the injury report, I would feel a little bit more bullish about him. It's a situation where I think the Texans could dominate the Patriots, and there could be a lot of opportunities here on the ground just due to a leading game script. We don't have Nico Collins in the lineup for the Texans, so plenty of upside for Joe Mixon. He's going to be starting in most of your lineups if he's out there. Just got to avoid that re-injury potential risk. And we just need to make sure he looks right. Because sometimes these guys come back and it can be a 2 to 3 week dip in efficiency and in production just because they're still trying to get completely right.
Looking at our RB ranks over at FantasyLife.com, which you guys can all check out for yourselves. Thinking, Dwayne, my RB 14 is Najee Harris. You got him RB 17. DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, they're kind of in that name. Probably put Mixon ahead of those guys, or is that about where he is because we're just a little bit unsure with him playing through the pain?
I have to think through it a tad more, but it'd be right in that range. I'm not super confident, honestly, and just automatically moving him ahead of all those guys. I've got him at running back 19 right now. The way I work my process on these guys, if I think there's any chance they have to practice the week, I go ahead and rank them where I think they would be. That's so you guys can know if you're making decisions around Thursday night football and different things like that. You're like, okay, where would we be talking about this player if they were healthy? So I don't know that I'm going to move him. I'll probably have him at running back 19. I will say Charch has got him at running back 13, and Charch has a guillotine mind. So Charch is always thinking about don't get cut, don't get chopped, don't get chopped. And for him to have him at running back 13 says quite a bit because Charch, he plays it pretty conservative on some of these injuries, so he's a lot more confident than me.
Some guys we will accordingly, though, have Mixon ahead of, at a minimum, Ramondre Stevenson, Rico Dowdle, Travis Etienne. What a time to be alive, playing through a bit of pain himself, Javonte Williams, amongst others. So good chance, again, Joe Mixon will be in your lineup.
What about J.K. Dobbins?
Gus Edwards is banged up. I think if we take Gus out of it, not that he was even, honestly, maybe we did see the big spike in week 4, before the bye because Gus was banged up, but I think I would lean Dobbins.
I think I would too. And right now I've got Dobbins below Mixon by 2 spots, but with this stuff with Gus, and guys, if Kamani Vidal is on your waiver wire, which he is in most leagues, he's a great stash this weekend. If Gus Edwards doesn't play, this will be his chance.
Is he?
This is going to be his chance to, it's going to be, yeah, absolutely, dude. If he comes out and plays well, we'll see. But I want to take the, oh man, no. I want to take the guy I think is more talented. I don't care.
I think Harbaugh
Haskins is doing nothing for me if he takes over the backfield. Give me the guy that if he gets on the field and he looks really good like he did in college, which is Kamani Vidal, he is the guy that can change your fantasy season, not Haskins. Haskins is not going to change the destiny of your fantasy team. So he's just a stash. You're not starting him this weekend, but if it goes your way and he gets half of that work and looks great, it could ice Gus Edwards the rest of the year. He could be the running back too. And then if something happens with Dobbins, you're really cooking.
I don't know, man. Haskins changed the destiny of my Thanksgiving 3 years ago in freaking Michigan, in Ann Arbor.
Well,
so
I knew there was something here.
Still got some scars going on over there. Okay, so no, I agree. Kamani Vidal, nice little deep stash. Sometimes we do see these rookie bumps again after their bye, and particularly with that Gus Edwards injury, a better time than ever to get that rookie stashed. Final note, Dwayne, another, I should say 2 more AFC East running backs to get to. Ramondre Stevenson not practicing both days this week with a foot injury. Last week, hilariously got benched for all of 1 series, but now maybe, just maybe, we actually do see Antonio Gibson getting that 3-down role opportunity in a matchup against the Texans that will again feature Drake May under center.
Yeah, so I mean, if we have Stevenson out, Antonio Gibson becomes a borderline running back too. I know that sounds weird, but it's a terrible offense, right? This is really where we had already moved Ramondre Stevenson to. Now, with Mondre, the one other caveat had been, well, now it's a complete split backfield. So if Antonio Gibson truly did get all this work to himself, which I'm not convinced because they've been using JaMychal Hasty a little bit more lately, but I definitely think he would lead the team. I would put him right there in that low-end running back 2, high-end running back 3. You say it better than me, Hart. It's borderline running back 2 territory for Antonio Gibson. I do worry that there's a real opportunity to just get their wheels blown off this weekend, by the Texans. And hey, that is that could be a positive for Gibson because he is good out of the backfield. Maybe that actually might be the game script you're hoping for, guys, because that might mean, well, hey, man, at least he caught 5 balls for 40 yards. That's 9 fantasy points. And then if he just has a little bit rushing, maybe you could get to 15. I could see a path to 15 fantasy points for Antonio Gibson.
He has been commanding the routes pretty well. Last 2 weeks, yes. 31%, 43%. So as you like to say, Dwain, my favorite player, JaMychal Hasty, I don't think is going to be too big of an issue here for Gibson if we do see Mondre out. Okay, let's say Jonathan Taylor is out. Would you and let's say Mondre is out. Would you prefer Trey Sermon or Antonio Gibson?
Man, they're a coin flip. They're going to both be right there. I think I prefer Gibson a tad just because Trey Sermon – he came off the injury report yesterday with the collarbone issue. Yeah. But Ty Goodson, I think, is a little bit more of a threat to his role than JaMychal Hasty is to Gibson. And I don't love the matchup this weekend for the Colts either. So both of them have shaky matchups. I think Gibson's role is more solidified, slightly like the Colts offense better. So that does make it a coin flip. But I would give a slight lean to Gibson. How about you?
I agree with Gibson. That said, if we have Devin Singletary out, I think Tracy probably clues them
both. Both. Yes. Tracy looked really good, man. Tracy, if he gets the full-time role this week, I'll have him as a mid-range running back too, not a borderline.
Ooh, feels good.
We had him there last week.
Tracy
we had a mid-range running back too last week.
Good job by us sometimes, Dwain. All right, another AFC East running back to monitor. James Cook, guys, not practicing with a toe injury. Buffalo doesn't play until Monday night against the Jets, so you're going to need to make sure you have some insurance here if he is going to be listed questionable on Saturday. But yeah, they even kind of gave participation for their Wednesday practice that wasn't official, and he also wasn't out there for that one. So if we do see James Cook out, Dwain, yes, Ty Johnson has technically been playing more snaps than Ray Davis, but sure seems like that's been a bit game script dependent in that pass down role. We would expect Ray Davis to probably be the leader here in touches and specifically overall rush attempts.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the rushing attempts, 21% on the year for Ray Davis, and we've got Ty Johnson at 8%. But route participation, 29% to Ty Johnson and 8% to Ray Davis. Major hat tip to Joe Brady for just tipping off defenses, anything he wants to do based on who he has in the backfield. It's very, 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 very high-level coaching. Absolute tremendous stuff, and that's why the Bills' offense is really rocking this season. But yeah, Ray Davis would be the guy that I think would take over the rushing attempts from James Cook. I think Ty Johnson's role stays similar. Probably picks up Ian, though, maybe a little bit more work in the passing game. I can see some of those passing down reps they've been giving to James Cook actually handing those off to Ty Johnson. And this thing looking a little bit closer to like a 50-50 split, but Ray Davis would be the guy I would want. He's the guy I think that has the best chance to score the touchdowns for you. And I think he's just also the better player overall.
And he can catch. I mean, it's not like he's this one-dimensional grinder. If you actually look at these last 2 seasons, Bucky Irving was the only running back that basically had like a top 150 kind of prospect grade overall that did actually have more fantasy points per game from receiving than Ray Davis. So just kind of, again, going back to that group we were talking about, Dwain, Tracy, Gibson, Sermon. If we do see Ray Davis added to that with James Cook out, where would he kind of stack up there?
Yeah, so I'm going Tracy over him. I think I would be willing to take a shot on him over Gibson or Sermon.
Just Bills offense.
I feel it. Yes, I feel it. Which is, what are we saying? Bills offense. I just made fun of it. Bills offense. Oh wait, maybe we should actually go with the Patriots offense. I don't know. Yeah, but I have Josh Allen. Right. So Josh Allen is the trump card. I know that there's going to be ceiling in any game that Josh Allen is a part of, despite the fact that his offensive coordinator might be limiting him.
Yeah, let me correct that from Bill's off. It's just Josh Allen. That's why we're starting
Josh
days
Allen
ahead of those guys. All right, guys, a few other running back notes. Audric Estime is expected to be activated for Sunday, so could add another cog into that existing committee between Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin. We'll see with Bijan Robinson. He did get added to the injury report on Thursday with a hamstring injury. That said, he was on the injury report last week with a hammy and limited, ended up having no designation, and was also a midweek addition in week 4 with a shoulder injury. Also, no designation, went out there and played his usual role. So maybe a decent reminder, Bijan not exactly 100% healthy, but I would be very surprised if he misses Sunday's game. Similar sentiment with Saints running back Alvin Kamara. Did not practice on Wednesday, was limited on Thursday. But that said, guys, had the hip and ribs issue last week and was still limited until he was full and ultimately not listed. Travis Etienne should be good to go and play through that shoulder injury, although, it is enough of a problem that I would not be surprised at all to continue to see Tank Bigsby splitting carries. Chase Brown, damn it, Dwain, you messaged me yesterday and I just sent you a listing of like the closest bridges to where I was. Thought I might need to jump off one or two because Chase Brown, again, added to the injury report on Thursday with a quad, limited. And Zach Moss actually got back out there on the field on Thursday, limited as well. So we'll see what happens here. I don't think you guys need us to tell you that Chase Brown's out and Zach Moss is in. Huge bump for him, and vice versa, applies as well. Also, Giants running back Devin Singletary has been limited in both practices this week, so not exactly in the clear, but seemingly progressing. Similar sentiment with Browns running back Nick Chubb. We'll see if he's able to make his return this week or not. Guys not practicing and not looking good. Bucks RB Rashad White limited on Wednesday and did not practice on Thursday. Dwain, I do think if we see Rashad White out of the picture, Bucky Irving clears every one of those running backs we were talking about.
Absolutely. I think the one you could argue with would be Tyrone Tracy, but I would go ahead and clear him, with Bucky Irving because we like the Bucs offense more, right? And I think there's an opportunity with Spencer Rattler starting on the other side that, man, by third, fourth quarter, it could be a game where it's really just like, let's just hand the ball off to Bucky Irving and see what happens. So, yeah, I think he would be the guy that would probably move to maybe borderline running back 1, at least, but past the mid-range running back 2, maybe more towards a high-end running back 2.
Probably be there right there with, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris, and those sorts of guys.
Yes.
All right, Colts running back Jonathan Taylor still dealing with that ankle and not practicing, although he did say his pain level has gone down tremendously, so seemingly moving in the right direction. Trey Sermon, as Dwayne mentioned before, did not practice on Wednesday, but was a full practice on Thursday, so we are expecting him to play due to that collarbone injury. Commanders running back Brian Robinson has not been practicing. That was the case last week, though. He was questionable and wound up playing. Just would kind of expect him to be in that limited, maybe short yardage only role again. Austin Eckler is good to go with the heel injury. We mentioned Gus Edwards. He has not been practicing with that ankle issue. If he is going to be out of the picture, again, give a nice little look to Kamani Vidal on the waiver wire, and then J.K. Dobbins makes his spot that much better. Steelers running back Jalen Warren has been limited in practice, and he said he's feeling good, albeit Mike Tomlin said that he's considering him doubtful. Cordero Patterson also not practicing. So once again, setting up for the Najee Harris show if you're interested in that sort of thing. And finally, Raiders running back Zamir White not practicing with the groin. Should be another addition of Alexander Madison and Amir Abdullah, leading the least interesting offense in the entire world at this point. So, guys, that was our running back injuries. We got plenty of wide receiver goodness to get through. But first, a quick word to our friends over at DraftKings. A chill in the air, leaves falling to the ground in football every weekend. That is what fall is all about, and you can make each weekend even more exciting by getting into the action with our partners at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet on touchdowns. And right now, all new customers who bet $5 will instantly get $200 in bonus bets. All you got to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using our promo code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours. Again, that is $200 in bonus bets instantly, and you can stay in on the action, use your $200 in bonus bets to bet anytime touchdowns on DraftKings. DraftKings is the place to bet on touchdowns. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use our promo code FANTASYLIFE and bet just $5 on any wager to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code FANTASYLIFE only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Dwayne, we can't have nice things, and we said how we had nice things in Rashee Rice and Malik Nabers after week 3, and lo and behold, Rice is done for the season, and Nabers is still not practicing with that concussion. So not looking good for Sunday night against the Bengals, and as we've seen, man, when Nabers is out, surprisingly didn't exactly nuke this offense. Still a good matchup against the Bengals. Wan'Dale Robinson and even Darius Slayton looking like people that can help fantasy managers get through the buys.
Yeah, and with Malik Nabers, we won't give up yet, right? When we look at Deepak Chona, he's at SportMD Analysis on Twitter. Great follow, guys. Yeah. He talks about, he does a really nice job of quickly summarizing the injuries and based on data, historically, what does this mean about their chances to play? He says the data still favors, Nabers playing, but obviously he has to progress in the concussion protocol today. So today's a really big day. If he's still in the same status is what we heard yesterday from Daboll. If he says that again, no, he's in the same step and he didn't clear it, he's probably not playing this weekend. But if he can clear the next step today, and then he gets one more day tomorrow to clear the next step, then we would be able to see Malik Nabers on Sunday Night Football against Jamar Chase, the two LSU greats just battling it out. If we somehow got Justin Fields on the field. Justin Fields, Jefferson on the field. My brain knew I was saying something wrong. It's like, you're an idiot. We had Justin Fields on the field. Like we wouldn't start any of these guys. Just kidding. But yeah, no, I know. But yeah, whenever we look at this, if we don't have Nabers, to your point, Wan'Dale Robinson is proven with Nabers. Like this offense is consolidated around those two. I get it, guys. You think it's gimmicky. It's all underneath the line of scrimmage, and it is. But in PPR and half PPR leagues, that makes him a borderline wide receiver 2 every week, with or without Malik Nabers. The guy that gets the bump is Darius Slayton, and he's more of a boom bust kind of guy, but he would enter that wide receiver 3 conversation against this Bengals defense that just hasn't been very good this season, Ian, really in any facet of the game. Cam Taylor-Britt could be a tough matchup for a guy, like Slayton, but overall, I would say low-end wide receiver 3. He could give you that wide receiver 2 kind of week. He could also give you a wide receiver 5 kind of week, but that's just kind of life in the fast lane if you're going to have to get a guy like Darius Slayton into your fantasy lineup.
Life in the fast lane, indeed. And we're not talking about the Eagles just yet. See what I did there, Dwain? All right. Another wide receiver one who unfortunately is dealing with the wrath from the injury gods. Texans wide receiver Nico Collins on IR with that hamstring injury. And even backup wide receiver Robert Woods, a.k.a. Bobby Trees, not practicing with a foot issue. So Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, and maybe even a little bit of John Mechie ahead of this matchup against the Patriots. Dwain, I'm looking at our ranks right now. I have Stephon Diggs wide receiver 9. You have him wide receiver 10. I think it's safe to say everyone is starting Stephon Diggs if you got him. Tank Dell is where things get a little more interesting. I have him wide receiver 24. You have him wide receiver 23. Ahead of guys like Darnell Mooney, Amari Cooper, Dontavian Wicks, Josh Downs, but behind the Jameson Williams, T. Higgins, Deontay Johnsons of the world. Explain yourself.
Yeah, I mean, look, we want him to be a Jameson Williams, right? Jameson Williams has come on this year as really being that big play threat, for the Lions. That's still what Tank Dell can be for the Houston Texans. We just haven't seen him click yet, and he hasn't looked quite right. If we had already seen Tank Dell really look more normal and it had just been, he didn't have enough playing time, I would be much more bullish about even getting him up higher in the ranks. But again, I really like him this weekend. We're talking about a player that has been the wide receiver 71 on the season, and we've not got him inside our top 24. So, I mean, that's a major, major hat tip to our respect for Tank Dell and what he did last season, even though we haven't seen it this year. Targets per route run, none of that stuff's been good for Tank Dell, but we still know that the big playability is there. So I just think that's the spot you have to put him, man. Borderline wide receiver 2, does have high-end wide receiver 1 upside. But, I mean, look, are you wanting to start him over Brian Thomas Jr.? Brian Thomas Jr. has a tough matchup against the Bears, and we've got Evan Ingram coming back. But still, Brian Thomas Jr.'s he's already shown us all year he's been really good. So, that's a tough call. J-Mo's already shown us in his offense he can blow up for 25 fantasy points. So it kind of comes down to this group of guys where I'm like, similar roles, similar archetypes, but they've already shown me. This year that they can do it. And Tank Dell, we know he did it last year. We know it's in there somewhere, but he hasn't yet. So that's why I have him a little bit below those guys.
We'll say again, and you brought this up as well, if he catches that potential 60, 70-yard touchdown against the Bears, maybe we're having a different conversation. Yeah. And I don't think it's been like he's been atrocious by any stretch. And you can even see this from ESPN's, open rating with their advanced analytics. He's just in an offense with 2 other complete studs, okay? Nico is 2nd in the NFL in open rating. Stephon Diggs is 7th. Hey, Tank Dell down there tied for 15th with Tyreek Hill and Elijah Moore, amongst others. So maybe goes to show you that it's not the most perfect stat out there, but what what is in this society anyway, Dwain. So Tank Dell, someone that I think you might even have a few more nice things to say about him later when we get to our bold calls. A little bit of foreshadowing there for everyone at home. More injuries, though, Dwain. With the Colts, we have Michael Pittman out with the back injury, if someone that could honestly be put on IR at some point this weekend. And even Josh Downs with the toe issue has not been practicing this week. So fingers crossed, Downs is fine, because if, again, we do have Michael Pittman out, and if that's going to be the case, yes, nice bumps for Alec Pearson, AD Mitchell, but Josh Downs should be the number one regardless of who ends up being under center.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Downs, I've got him at wide receiver 28. I'm assuming, that we've got Anthony Richardson under center. We talked about it yesterday. If Richardson's out there and we don't have Pittman, he's a wide receiver 3. And so that's where I've got Josh Downs. I might have him a little too high, but there's things going on here. I've got Rashid Shaheed below him, who are worried about an injury, and he's got Spencer Rattler. I've got Chris Olave below him. I'm worried about Spencer Rattler. So some things kind of get even there, right? It's like, okay, I'm worried about Anthony Richardson, but I'm also worried about Spencer Rattler. Like, those things are pretty similar. George Pickens, you got to deal with Justin Fields and freaking Arthur Smith not putting you on the field. Christian Kirk against the Bears, potentially Evan Ingram back, and Brian Thomas Jr. really looking like the wide receiver 1 on that team. So I feel pretty comfortable about where I've got him, but he's kind of similar to all those guys, right? There's questions. We know they're talented players, but the environment and the setup isn't really that good this weekend. Playing against the Titans, man, they've been brutal. Hat tip to the Titans. I mean, they made major defensive changes, changed their coordinator. They brought in talent as the biggest thing. They really upgraded their cornerback room, and they've been a matchup problem, for opposing wide receivers. So you got that going against Josh Downs. Man, I'll tell you right now, if it was Joe Flacco under center somehow, he would be a borderline wide receiver 1, even in a tough matchup. Guy's a 30% target share in his first 3 games back from injury.
I was about to say, I mean, it sounds wild to say borderline wide receiver 1, but guys, Steelers, 9 targets, caught 8 of them, 82 yards and a touchdown. Last week, Jaguars, easier matchup, sure, but still caught 9 of 12 targets for 69 scoreless yards. PPR maven in Indy right now. Just hopefully, again, that toe injury isn't anything to overly worry about. That's why, again, guys, make sure you check out our consensus ranks over the weekend. We'll have everything updated once we do get the final verdict on all of these issues. Saints wide receiver Shaheed Dwain should be okay. Started off the week with the DMP and then limited due to a hip issue, and told the media that he'll be all right for Sunday. So facing the Buccaneers, but again, just the sad reality of not having Derek Carr under center. So with Shaheed, again, more so in that mid-tier or a wide receiver 3 range, as opposed to someone who needs to be in lineups.
Yeah, Shaheed's been a wide receiver 2 for me the last 3 games. So, I mean, I've even though I've had him right below Olave, I've had them both in that wide receiver 2 conversation. They both downgrade to wide receiver 3 territory with Spencer Rattler. I will say there is a better than 0% chance that it's a non-factor, Ian, because I think we could see a situation where the game script forces a little bit more throwing than they even want for Spencer Rattler, because it's like Derek Carr, it's not like he's been throwing for 300 yards a game. Right. It's not like we're downgrading from some dude that's been on there just completely balling out. Let's be honest. Derek Carr had 2 really good games, and he's been mid to bad the last 3 games. So it's not like we're in a situation where it's like, oh my God, man, they had this great quarterback and now they're downgrading to nothing. The real question is, can Spencer Rattler be better than terrible? And when I say terrible, think Zach Wilson. Can he be better than that? If he can just be like even a bus driver for the offense, this might not be as big of an impact as I'm thinking, but it's still enough of an unknown that I don't think you can keep them as wide receiver 2. So that means in some of the smaller leagues you guys are playing in, he's going to be both of these players will be candidates to hit the bench on your team, depending on who else you have.
-6% dropback rate over expected for the Saints this year. Yeah, could change, depending on the game script. So we'll still be out, though, with 2 of their key starters on the offensive line in Cesar Ruiz and Lucas Patrick, not practicing to start this week as well. Finally, Dwain, over in Buffalo, Khalil Shakir is still dealing with what I believe is a high ankle sprain. He has not practiced all week. Curtis Samuel and Matt Collins also banged up with toe and shoulder injuries, although they are limited. So at this point, man, like Keon Coleman, I guess, is the wide receiver we trust most in Buffalo, but even then, man, can't really get him outside of that higher than that wide receiver 4 range, especially ahead of a tough matchup with Sauce Gardner and the Jets.
Yeah, man, Keon has just not been good. Let's just be honest. I mean, he's got a 13% target share for the season. Guys, that's like wide receiver 6 territory. That's like can't be anywhere near your fantasy lineup. Like, we got our fingers crossed. We're hoping like he can improve, but right now he and Josh Allen are not on the same page. They're also not doing him any favors with his route tree, Ian. They got this guy out here just running gassers. I don't understand it. I'm not going to go on another Joe Brady rant, but like your offense is in dire need of someone to help Josh Allen out in the middle and the intermediate ranges of the field, outside and inside. And you're taking maybe, your best weapon. You guys decided to spend a first round pick on the guy and you're not using him, to his strengths. So there's always a chance, like in a situation like this where so many players are injured, they decide to, switch up the utilization, in the way that they're using Keon Coleman. Maybe that helps them out, Ian. But at the same time, a lot of times when you look at these players, like the routes they get to run, it's what they earn. So if he's not doing it in practice, he's not on the same page with Allen, he's not dropping it, then they could just be saying, well, fine, we'll let you run gassers and let you try to run the coverage off because you can't do anything else. We don't know for sure. We don't really know what's going on, but to your point, you can't get him above wide receiver 4 range. It's been really terrible. Khalil Shakir is by far the best player in this offense. The other guy I would like to see more, Ian, is Curtis Samuel. I mean, and look, if James Cook, if he's banged up and he misses this game and we have a situation where Khalil Shakir is injured, that could be a recipe for Curtis Samuel.
RB1 and a wide receiver 1. A man can dream, Dwain. And that man was me like 6 weeks ago. Hasn't exactly worked out. I understand it, but maybe we're just a little early, man. We will see what happens there. A few more wide receiver injuries to run through. Eagles should be getting back both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. They have practiced in full all week. Great day to beat. Great there. Also, Falcons wide receiver Darnell Mooney has been limited with the knee issue. So again, still at practice, but keep an eye on that just to make sure he is good to go for Sunday. Panthers wide receiver Deontay Johnson also limited with an ankle injury. Same thing he was dealing with last week, though, and hasn't impacted him. Kind of par for the course with Deontay, not always being full at practice. Packers wide receiver Christian Watson already back practicing in a limited fashion with that ankle injury. So might be a shorter, Dontavian Wicks sort of, starting role than we anticipated. Over with the Ravens, Rashad Bateman with that groin injury limited on Thursday. So we'll see what happens there. Also, Jalen McMillan, Patriots wide receivers Kendrick Bourne and KJ Osborne, Jaguars wide receiver Gabe Davis, and yes, recently unsuspended Cardinals wide receiver Zay Jones, already dealing with a hamstring injury. All of those guys are limited if you are in those deeper leagues where you need to care about that. Not looking good to play. We do have Devontae Adams with the hamstring. Foley not expecting to play, hamstring injury. And then also Jacoby Myers with the ankle, not going to be out. Maybe not going to be out there as well, hasn't practiced all week. So will be good news for Trey Tucker, but probably more so Brock Bowers. Again, anyone's idea of a top 3 tight end, especially with Michael Mayer still not practicing due to personal reasons. Finally, Broncos wide receiver Josh Reynolds and Bucs wide receiver Trey Palmer are looking iffy as well. Sterling Shepard, a big waiver wire transaction going on in my 32-team fantasy league, Dwayne. Gotta love the sort of players we are dealing with in those streets. So that was the wide receiver news. Now let's get to some of the bigger storylines at tight end. The first one being, Dwayne, I know someone that you said you were watching every single catch he's had this year before the show. Packers tight end Tucker Kraft dealing with the groin injury, man. It wasn't listed and then fell down to a limited practice on Thursday. Not exactly what you want to see. That said, if he is healthy, he should have that full-time role for another month because Luke Musgrave now on injured reserve with that ankle injury.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, man, I've been watching Kraft. He's great with the ball in his hands. I still have questions, though. His targets for the season, 15%. Targets per route run, which only counts when you're on the field, 16%. Those are not good numbers. And if you go look at his yak, on 3rd and 14, all verts running a clear out, and he goes for like 15 yards. Then we got a 3rd and 19, all verts runs a clear out, and they dump it down. Now he gets the first down, but there's no one in 10 yards of this guy. So even the yak stuff we're talking about with Tucker Kraft, I like it. I just don't know that it's sustainable. And so he's going to need to earn targets. The groin injury is obviously a little bit of a concern injury. I caught myself there, Ian. You did. Because if anything hurts his yak, right, that's going to be a problem for him. But I just don't know that when defenses really start paying attention to this guy, all of his 1st and 10 targets, 2nd and 5 targets, they're not near as productive as what we're seeing when he's getting these wide open runways. And again, to be clear, guys, when you watch him get to his first defender, he is good. He can make the guy miss. He can run them over. So I'm not trying to say Tucker Kraft doesn't really look good. If you look at the way that this has been happening and you look at his underlying data overall, The utilization score says that he still might just be a high-end tight end 2 or a low-end tight end 1. It's not as bullish as some people in the community thinking this guy's going to be a top 3, top 5 tight end the rest of the way. Still can be in your fantasy lineup because we're all hurting.
Yeah. And again, he does have an 80% plus route rate in the Packers offense. I just think if you even remove all the yak stuff and all the other concerns, that alone is enough to get him into our top 12 with the state of the position this year. Look, I think I'm maybe a little, more bullish, whatever the good one is. I always get him confused. That's why I never made it in finance, Dwayne. But I like Tucker Kraft a little bit more, tight end 8, but you have him tight end 9. We both have guys like Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert, Jake Ferguson, amongst others ranked ahead. We would start Tucker Kraft ahead of guys like Dalton Schultz, Cole Kmet, and even Dalton Kincaid, amongst others. What a time to be alive. Only other tight end notes. We'll see on Evan Ingram. He's someone that we could possibly fathom starting ahead of Kraft. He has been limited, though, with the hamstring injury. And last week, he was limited and questionable, wound up not suiting up. Pat Freiermuth was another midweek downgrade with a calf injury. Need to keep an eye on that. David Njoku practicing in a limited fashion, dealing with the knee and ankle injuries. We'll see there. Mike Gesicki and Tyler Conklin also limited, so we'll see if they can play through the pain. Guys not practicing, I mentioned Michael Mayer, also Taysom Hill with the fractured ribs, and the Panthers tight end remains all kind of banged up. Tommy Trembles with the concussion, and then also Ian Thomas downgraded on Thursday. So could be another game for Jatavian Sanders to probably do a lot of nothing, but you could imagine. Dwayne, those were the major injuries. Again, I invite you guys to check out our updated ranks over at FantasyLife.com throughout the weekend. We'll get you in a position to go hopefully win those fantasy matchups. But now, time for everyone's, or at least Dwayne and I's favorite segment of the week, bold calls. I believe we're 8-6, 8-5-1 on the season. We decided, Dwayne, because I said Romeo Dobbs last week and he wound up not playing. I guess you could count that as a loss.
I was 12-7-1. I can't remember.
Okay. Yours sounds better than mine, so let's go ahead and roll
good.
With
yeah,
that
no,
one.
It was better than yours.
Not a great week last week. I did get the Brandon Ayuk explosion game going. However, again, I missed on Dobbs. Even my backup, Josh Downs, didn't quite go off in the manner we were hoping for. You had Jerry Jeudy get nuked by the Deshaun Watson experience and Dontavian Wicks. Well, we've talked about that whole thing enough this week. So not the best week 5, Dwayne, but new week, new us. And accordingly, you want to go look at the Commanders wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin. We get the matchup against the Ravens. Terry McLaurin right now is the wide receiver 33 in fantasy points per game. He's going to give you a wide receiver 1 performance this week, Ian. I think he goes off for 6 catches, 120 yards. Let's get 2 touchdowns. We're talking about a Ravens defense that's an absolute funnel, man. Giving up 60 yards per game on the ground, but 304 through the air. And we have the clear-cut number 1 target right now in Washington and an offense that's really buzzing. So, yeah, give me Terry McLaurin for a huge performance this weekend against the Ravens.
Cannot wait to check out that crosstown rivalry. I'm going back to the well, Dwayne. I'm firing up your bold take from last week again. Dontavian Wicks, 7 catches, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns because of all the nice things we've said about him being a target earner. But mostly, Dwayne, it's because as a fantasy community, we saw it last week. We were all behind Wicks, and what happens? He busts. So now everyone's out on Wicks. What's going to happen? He's going to boom because that's the way fantasy football works. We can't have nice things until we completely give up on them, and then people like Dontavian Wicks will get back in our good graces. But on a more serious note, I just like to match up against the Cardinals. Should still have the starting role. We love Jordan Love, and I think Wicks is a good separator. So, yeah, going back to the well there. You, Dwayne, are going back to the well with someone who, again, have ranked as a top 24 wide receiver, despite not being anything close to that on the season. Tank Dell for you. Big game incoming.
Yeah, Tank Dell, I'm going to make it pretty simple. Last year in the games where he was over 50% route participation, the man averaged 19 fantasy points per game. Now, he's been over that number this year, but the difference is we've added Stephon Diggs to the offense to go with Nico Collins. So you remove Nico Collins from that equation. We're now down to Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, Ian, he's playing the slot. He's getting more of the short A-dot stuff. He's kind of going through a transition from what he's used to doing, in his role in Buffalo, and he's really transitioning to that, I don't know if we can say big slot, but, medium slot, kind of guy. And that's going to mean Tank Dell, I think, gets a lot of those deeper looks that we were seeing for Nico Collins. And we've seen CJ Stroud, man, he will buy that extra beat of time and he will push that ball down the field, not looking to check it down. So I think we get some big plays from Dell right away in this game. I think they happen in the first half, and we see a guy that is going to go for, what did I say, 5 catches, 100 yards, and a T. I'm not going to give him the 2 touchdowns. Ian may say I'm being weak and not bold enough, but I love Tank Dell as a top 24 wide receiver this week.
I am going to go with 2 touchdowns for my next pick, but it's a bit more chalky than yours, Dwayne. But give me Lions RB1, David Montgomery, 100 plus rushing yards and 2 scores. Cannot wait to be parlaying this over with our friends at DraftKings. And I get that it's chalky, guy, but I'm eating it. All right. I am Tony Montana with that freaking chalk thing that you see in weight rooms, going absolutely crazy with the chalk. So with D-Mon, again, it's a Cowboys defense we already know struggles against the best run offenses of the NFL. And now we have a lesser version of it with D-Law and Micah Parsons out once again. So well-rested Lions team. We heard Friedman say yesterday, man, likes the over and likes the Lions to kill the Cowboys. I'm in agreement. And accordingly, Montgomery should have a huge game. So we got Demont, Tank Dell, Dontavian Wicks, and Terry McLaurin. Take it to the bank, everybody. And hopefully take some, good lessons into your fantasy teams this weekend and go get that W. Dwayne and I will be back Sunday night to talk through everything that went down either way, and then back all throughout next week with regularly scheduled programming. So appreciate you guys as always. For Dwayne, for producer Kelsey, for producer Matt, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning into the Fantasy Life Show. And until next time, take care, everybody.